Have faith. He lives in you. He lives in me. He watches over everything you see. Into the waters, into the truth, in your reflection, he lives in you. Dream, and a voice in the wind whispers, I am a miller. Wait, there's no mountain too great. Hear these words and have faith. Oh, he lives in you. He lives in me. He watches over everything we see. Into the water, into the truth, in your reflection, he lives in you. He lives in you. He lives in you. He lives in me. He watches over everything you see. Into the water, into the truth, in your reflection. He lives in you. He lives in you. He lives in you. Oh yeah. He lives in me. He watches over everything we see. Into the water, into the truth, in your reflection. He lives, he lives, he
Well, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Cyrus Gray, and welcome to today's edition of Election Central. Today is going to be our last in the Election Central series for this election year. So, by the beginning of the new year, we'll be rolling out a new weekly program. We're still working on the team and the content. Today, I will be joined by my co host, Alfonso Neil. He's already here. Alfonso, how are you? Can you hear me?
Yeah, yes, I do. I hear you. Do you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you loud and clear.
Okay.
Welcome. How,
Yeah,
it's been 2 weeks since we last talked. How you been?
doing okay. Doing okay. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great. So we're also going to be joined by our other co-host, Michael, Michael Rennie. Michael, can you hear us? Michael, we see your lips moving, but we can't hear you. Yeah, we're still not picking you up. Work on that stuff. But ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Election Central. As I said earlier, today, today we're going to be running the last in our series of the Election Central. sequel. We've been basically talking about election issues and then governance issue, and we are coming close to the new term of a new president, the president-elect Joe Walker. So we decided we will design a new show that would deal with present issue. But today's show, we're going to be talking about reconciliation and then unification. And I took that theme because there are a couple of big things that have happened of late on the front of unification. You may know that President Weah is leaving with a bang. You know, he just unveiled yesterday what they call the Liberia Unification Park. It's the old beachfront property behind the barracks where the 13 officials of the Tolbert government were educated. I mean, executed. Pardon me. And President Weah and his team has literally turned that facility to a beautiful sports park. I told earlier it was only a sports park, so I drove down there today to take a look at what they had. So let's start off with that short clip for the best we can see it. So how you doing, man? Okay, can you hear me now?
I'm hearing you if you're referring to me.
Are you guys doing?
I'm hearing you.
Yeah, Marco, we can hear you. We can hear you breaking up. But guess what? This will be an 8 minute video clip, but it took a life of its own. It looked like. So what I think we should do, so we don't take up all the time. I did some still photos of the facilities, so maybe we should run through that instead of the video kind of going too slow and not really clear. So let me switch that around. Okay, this is. Can you hear me,
Yep.
Alfonso? Yeah, this is. These are still photos of the facility, so we just run through it. It's called the Liberia Unification Park. I mean, the entire beachfront, probably 1 mile long, has been reinforced. A beach walk has been installed there with proper lighting. I think a solar system, a generator, and a whole security team there taking care of the facility at least for the first day or two. I really hope they can have a protocol to maintain it. Uh, they also have a line of shops. They design shops,
And shops,
open shops, yeah, open
shop, yeah,
markets.
open markets, open markets, open markets, open markets, open markets.
Parker, can you mute? Let's see what happened. When you came in, we noticed that
Yeah.
yeah, they got a couple of football pitches, volleyball courts, basketball courts. I mean, if you know what this place was before, they have a whole line of lavatory restrooms for male and female. And they got running water in there. These are the storefronts, they're small commercial booths. I think there are 13 of them. I don't know the plan. Maybe they're going to lease them out for people to open their shops. Then there's the open market space in between there. And yeah, that's a long view. I mean, all the places paved very well, proper drainage. They have canals leading back to the ocean just in case it rains. Then they have a whole open area with exercise units for all kinds of exercise. I'm already all the kids. You notice a really poor neighborhood. All the kids are already out there and they mesmerizing. They're really happy. Um, this is the beachfront reinforcement. I mean, it's up to now really clean, so you can see the color of the water is coming out, unlike many of the other beaches that we have. It also has ample parking on both the east and west side. It would take easily more than 100 cars. Yeah, this again is the beach front. And then this is what I was concerned about because I was wondering it was all a soccer park, and that is the key topic of our discussion today. At the very spot where the 13 men were educated, I mean, were executed. I keep using that word. Were executed. They have built, see a 30 by 30 space memorial. There are no markings on those marble yet, but they call this the Unification Square. This place, call it the Unification Square. They have a flagpole in the middle. I don't know if it's one of the same flagpole or it's a replica, but they're making sure that they make sure that they remember that spot and what happened there. So it's a part of the Unification Park. This place is also well lighted on all sides. It's in the PHP community, just behind the old BTC barracks, which is now the Ministry of Defense. Yeah, I think that's about it. Mm, That's about it. But like I said, it will miss you if you went down there. Alfonso is a real beautiful facility, and I'm glad that they thought about memorializing in some way the people who were executed down there, because I truly believe that those executions and many others that have been unresolved and unreconciled but still remain a part of the problem that we have today in our country. That's why today I thought we should discuss reconciliation, then unification. So you see that park actually represents unification. They're highly anything in the country, whether in an intangible or intangible substance that speaks to reconciliation. So I thought to reflect a little bit on some of the things that we've done in the period of our conflict which has still been focused on unification. Unification means bringing the people together, even though there are lingering and unresolved crises. So I was able to pick a few of the monuments that we've put up over the years for unification. I was really seeking for one that I took out of Maryland Harper, but I don't know what I kept that footage, but I'll probably some of the viewers who know. So we're somewhere on the beach close to the port in Harper. There is a monument that says the same thing: countryman shaking Congo man hand. Mostly that's what this this almost all the unification stuff represent. They either showing the president being glorified or indigenous people appearing to be making friendship with the sons of settlers. This monument is in the back of the Centennial Pavilion, and I think this is a little different. It shows just some rush to the top. I think it symbolizes the people of the nation relying on each other and trying to excel to the top. Not much is taught about these things, not in the public space, not in our school. I'll be surprised if even 1% of the population have gone in the back of that pavilion to see that monument. Then we have this one. I think it was done in the 60s in Vonjima by President Tolbert, the Unification Monument. It sits in Vonjima. And again, the idea was to symbolize that now there is a union between indigenous people and the descendants of settlers. This is more than 100 years after independence. Then this is before the Centennial Pavilion. There are two. There are a couple of other images there in the back, but these two in the front I thought we should take note of. You see the way they're dressed. They still send the same message that there are two sets of people. One group is the indigenous people, native people, and one the westernized descendants of settlers. I mean, we have some time, Francis, so I can get your view on what is symbolism, what have they really done for us, vis-a-vis the lingering question of elements that are necessary for reconciliation in the face of all the things that have happened in our history. So let me run through this, set the premise, then we go. This is another monument. This is Joseph Jingin Rivers up to Ducal Palace. But I thought to take the images, the sculptures that were drawn on the base of the monument, it says the same thing. Indigenous chief shaking hand with a guy in the long tail coat, which signifies descendants of settlers. The other piece also says the same thing. So more or less, then this is the premise that I thought we should start off with. Reconciliation, then unification. Reconciliation at the heart of true reconciliation is justice. Peace is not the absence of violence. It is the presence of justice. Recently, I had an interview with Dr. Tikote, and that statement stuck with me. So just as we start, I'd like you guys to give your view so far where we are on this general topic, and then we'll get into some of the content issue. Reconciliation, then unification. What's the impression about the new display of the park and the attached unification square, as it's called?
Yeah, I can go if Marco is not joining. But yes, definitely it looks impressive. As I saw the pictures, perhaps the idea also is impressive and good. Um, and it should be encouraged. There's no country that survives or that makes progress without reconciling its past, without identifying where it has gone wrong, has made some mistakes, as we all do, whether as a people or as individuals. And then it's important to reflect on those mistakes. Never forget them. We should be reminded of them, especially the real terrible ones that happen, such as the country going through a civil war and all of the abuses that happen. And the importance of memory is so that we do not forget and repeat those same mistakes and those same errors. So each time we are reminded of the consequences of those actions, we are told never again to repeat them. So it's important. The park itself, in terms of the way it looks, is impressive, as I said earlier. And then, thank you, by the way, you did really great research in terms of all of the unification symbols that we have in the country. Those older monuments that you showed are a testament to the fact that, when of to the abuses that took place uh, during that period between our settler brothers and sisters, for lack of a better word, I'm using the word settler, and indigenous people who are on the ground in the land. So again, it's important to identify where we went wrong and where we can unify and make right. My concern with that, and this then dovetails into the actual discussion of substance, is the question of what are we unified? Are we a unified people yet? Have we accomplished that aim of unification, whatever that means? Um, and if we haven't, then why haven't we? And I'm saying this to say that um, programming is critical. Programming is key. The narrative is more important than just putting up these symbols. We can construct all of the unification monuments and parks in the world. If we don't attach programs to them that promote unification, just going to a park and playing soccer or seeing names of people is not going to unify people. I also, but again, I don't want to go into, as you say, you wanted us to make initial comments before we go into the real programming. So I don't want to go deep into the real programming issue. But I like the idea. I think, I mean, as far as I know, the TRC also has recommendations. I know we all just talked about the war crime prosecutions, but part of a fundamental piece of the TRC's recommendation is a unification. It's a reconciliation. It's a place where we will be able to remember the abuses that occurred during the war and other periods in our history, and address them. So I would have thought, I would have wished that President Weah and his government would have included uh, that in the construction of that unification plan, so that it addresses not just the 13 government officials who were shot, um, but also the thousands, hundreds of thousands of Liberians who were killed during the Civil War. As you went through those photographs, maybe they have that plan, but as you went through those photographs and discussed, the various places, I didn't see or hear any mention of those people, those women who were raped during the Civil War, those thousands of people who were killed, those children who were named and killed. I didn't see that park recognized that. Maybe it's there, that theme is there, but I didn't see that theme, and I think it's important to do that as well. Again, is one of the recommendations of the TRC.
Yeah, can you hear me? I think
Yeah, we can hear you, Michael.
going off of what Alfonso said, it's a great development for the city. It beautifies Monrovia, the coastline. Our Liberia, our coastline has not been used properly. The beauty of the beaches and the ocean. We've used it for other purposes, I guess, given the lack of public latrines and stuff like that. And I know that area was definitely highly used for people going to the bathroom or whatever. So it's a good idea to change that and beautify the city. We know Monrovia needs a lot. It's an old city, been around for a long time. There's a lot of development and improvement needed. So it is good. It beautifies the city. From a reconciliation perspective, I don't think it does much because that information was not communicated And the people who were affected by the events that occurred at that particular location, I don't think they were involved in the process of building that park. And like Alfonso said, if you're going to if you're going to start building unification monuments, you got to consider everybody that was affected at all stages in the different, fighting or massacres or whatever we had in Liberia. People were killed in different counties, and there's so much that happened that if you're going to build unification monuments, you have to take into consideration what happened, get the people in those places involved, get their families involved, so that they feel like they were a part of it and that this answered their question. And also, most importantly, reconciliation is not complete without justice. We've not held those people who perpetrated these crimes against Liberian people, but we have not held them accountable. So you can build all the monuments and say, oh, this is to tell our people to unify. But two, if the people don't feel like those people who are responsible for the atrocities were held accountable, and two, if they weren't involved in the process of building monuments that make them feel like this, when we see this, we feel like, we got answers. We got, yeah, our family members may not be here anymore, but at least we know that we're part of the process to heal our country. And if they're not part of those things, it's just a waste of time. People will still be sitting and waiting for something to happen. So I congratulate President Weah for the sports parks he's built. But honestly, I don't believe that sports park in that particular location accounts for the atrocities that were committed there, let alone the rest of Liberia.
Well, thank you. Well, that's a good start. But I just also to mention that if you look at the Unification Square, that component that is supposed to deal with the remembrance of the 13 who died, it seemed it was an afterthought because there are no markings on anything. There are a couple of marbles there. If you didn't know about the history of what happened, and you walk into that park, there's no way you will know what that represents. There are some black marbles, full big marbles situated there. My thinking is that at some point they will inscribe on those marbles something, names of people, a short narrative of events that will be able to draw the parallel on why that stuff is important, especially for our history. I've been part of a project almost 10 years ago where we, along with a museum, the Southwest Museum Services in Houston, and on the urging of President Sirleaf at the time, supposedly, research was done about Liberian conflict. And a whole reconciliation monument was developed somewhere down the shore. A copy of that monument is in short 3-minute video of that monument is in YouTube. I'll see if we can run it. But the idea was to create a space and get the Liberian people to participate in doing it, where names of people who in all the different atrocities, they will have the opportunity to have it inscribed. You will have Liberian historians and others who know about Liberian history to participate in setting up a befitting a memorial. Like Alfonso said rightfully, the idea of those places, they are not merely parks. They are lessons of history. They are teachable moments. So if you went to other countries where they came out of conflict, you went to Rwanda, they in fact have memorials where they still have on display the scores of people who were killed there, and they have them there so that people can see and remember that something had happened there that was so devastating that it affected the lives of the people. So as we go down and strengthen this discussion, I will pull out some of these, not to beat up on President Weah and his team. I know their intention was to build a park, allow for poor people who are unfortunate to have an opportunity to be able to go into the open space, the beach area, have a means to exercise. And so the fact that they chose that place, my thinking is that probably somebody called their attention to the importance of remembering what happened there. That in fact may have been the major precursor to the war that had devastated our country and sent our people all over the world into the diaspora. So as we go into that, I thought maybe we should talk a little bit about some of the atrocities that have occurred in our country. Um, I just chronicle a few atrocities. These are not all encompassing of everything that have happened. So take us back to 1872. I started with the forceful removal of President E.J. Raw. And everything I know about history, including a research for a book I've done, tells me that E.J. Raw's removal and his subsequent murder was purely because he dared to try to integrate the rest of the indigenous people into the republic. So the conflict about money, about loan, and he trying to perpetuate his term in the second time, it was all really about the fact that he has sent an expedition headed by William Spencer Anderson into the interior as far as Mosudugu in the present day Burkina Faso, and have won the acquiescence of those chiefs to become part of the republic. Once he was killed, the government under Joseph Jing Rabas in his second term just pulled back everything E.J. Raw did. We don't talk about that in our history. Then in the early 1900s, there were multiple conflicts with indigenous people, with the Liberian frontier force, aided by the U.S. military officers, Negro officers. So there's the December 1912 war led by American soldiers on Bios and Manos, militias in Tapeta, where people were massacred. There's the January 1912 war with Kisis and Bandis, and the summary execution of 8 Kisi chiefs in Kolahun on the orders of the Frontier Force Commander Colonel William Lomax and Commissioner James Cooper. They were subsequently arrested, brought to Monrovia, they were tried, and then the government extended leniency to them that there were emergency circumstances that made them to execute the chiefs. Then there was the 1913 war and rebellious Basel traps in Riverses. And for entire that period from the early 1900s to probably the mid 1900s, there were continuous wars between the government of Liberia and the Crews and Grable tribes. Then there was the forced conscription of natives into forced labor in Fanadupur, now Equatorial Guinea, by the government of Charles D.B. King around 1925 up to his resignation in 1930. This incident, in fact, put a dent on the Liberian state. The League of Nations set up a committee that concluded that our government was involved in the slave trade in some form of conscript labor, forced labor into Fanadupur. Then there was 1955 when President Tolbert claimed that some of his rivals wanted to remove him. He killed a lot of people, including Samuel Coleman and his son John, and many others. Then the coup of 1980, and the three of us who are fully aware of some of the circumstances of what happened then and how a whole lot of people were killed and many dispersed into the diaspora, and many have not even returned today. If you go in the downtown area in Monrovia, it has remained undeveloped for the most part because owners of those properties are not in Liberia. Those who dare to get involved are either leasing them to Lebanese, but a lot of the properties that are being squatted and they're not being developed because nobody wants to take the risk to develop properties that does not belong to them. And then you have the execution of several officers in various field coups, including Generals Thomas Wesson, Nicholas Podia, the General MMD from Zamiton. Then the execution and mutilation of Thomas Kurumpa after the field coup that followed the elections of 1985 and the reprisal against the people of Nima County. Then the cleansing of Krans and Mandingo tribesmen by MPFL in the 1990s, literally killing people just because they were Mandingo or Kran in reprisal or retaliation for what Samuel Doe has done. Then the murder of President Doe himself in INPF captivity. The mass murder of armed civilians by the MPFL, AFL, Ulimo K and J, LPC, Model, and various militias unleashed on Liberia during the Civil War. Then I also mentioned the illegal and unresolved killings of Liberians, including of late auditors, including one of which was my man, Bati Yensua. The recent public lynching, I think just about 2 weeks ago, of a lady called Detta Simmons in Painesville. Somebody said that she stole something. I understand that she finally died a few days ago. And all these especially the recent lynching and burning of people, the killings during the elections, all these are happening in the public glare. And there doesn't seem to be any kind of instituted authority that is trying to address it. I'll pass it on to you guys to give me your comments or on additional atrocities that you may know of.
I think you summarize it. There's a whole lot others, but I don't think it, except Michael wants to. I do not think that, you know, again, the idea is to, create a background so it doesn't inform the conversation to go more than what you've already done to go back and start bringing up
So,
other.
so my question to you both would be: do we know of any instance where any of these atrocities have been addressed,
Nope.
where
That is
they have been investigated and people have been held responsible and their culpability? Do we know of any?
that is the problem. So let me tell this story. So right after the war, I was involved with a process of peace and reconciliation. And so we went to Kagata to do a workshop, and we had a group of local people in Kagata present. We had an old man who's probably in his late 70s or mid 80s or whatever the case may be. And we were talking about the importance of truth in the reconciliation process. It's important to identify the truth. It's important for people to know what happened to their relatives or whatever. That's the way they can forgive you. Because, truth plus forgiveness equals reconciliation. That's just the basic term. So we were emphasizing the importance of truth telling in the reconciliation process. And the old man got up and said, "My children, you're right. You're right. And this country will never be peaceful until we tell the truth." And let me tell you one of the truths. He said it's written in our history books that the chiefs were murdered were killed by Matera Nipo as they were going to attack, were sneaking upon the people to attack to fight. He said that is not true. He said when you go home, ask your mom, ask the old people in the community. Do chiefs in the African culture go to war? Are chiefs the warriors? So he said no. Chiefs don't go to fight war. Chiefs have warriors. Every clan, every tribe, every district has the warriors that they send to battle. It's not the chiefs. He said what actually happened was those chiefs were invited to a meeting and they actually got there and then they killed them while they were sitting. And then they created the story that Matilda Newport saw them coming and took ash, whatever it is, coal from her pipe and put it in the cannon and then fired the cannon and killed the chiefs. Now, I don't know if that story is true or not true, but that is his belief. That is what he believes happened. And telling this story, Cyrus, to come to your question of have these things ever been investigated? Has the truth been established? And once we establish the truth, are we holding people accountable? Have we ever held people accountable? And in most of the cases, maybe there have been cases that I don't know of, but in cases I know of, the answer to that question is no. And that is what our problem is. And a lot of times that happens because we try to gloss over things. We try to build monuments to rather than investigating and establishing and holding people accountable. So we just say let's sweep everything under the carpet. As long as we build a monument to reconciliation and peace, that's sufficient. As long as we can say we have this unification day that is a holiday, that is sufficient. That is not sufficient, and that is the reason why we have this problem that we have today. Let me quickly talk about a few places. In Rwanda, when they had their genocide, had 100-day war and killed almost a million people, they did a few things. First of all, an international tribunal was set up to hold people accountable, to investigate and to hold people accountable who bore the greatest responsibility. On the national level, they set up national courts to hold people accountable, prosecute and hold people accountable. On the community level, they formed what they call the gachachas, which were community courts. So the community elected leaders, selected leaders in the community to be the ones that presided over, the trial process in their communities. And those who in the community who participated in the process, if they went there and they told the truth, they showed remorse and repentance, they could be forgiven, excuse me, or they could be sent to community service, or they could be sent to, do something. So the community service model was, hey, you came here, you killed these people, you burned the village, for example, you came here and you burned the mosque. Now your community service commitment is to help rebuild that mosque. So the community is restored, restorative justice. Of course, other people were sent to jail through the Gachacha process. It's ongoing. The fourth thing that they did in Rwanda was to say, we will work together for an ongoing development and improvement of our communities. So we all live here, the Tutsis and Hutus, we live in this community. Every month, we take one day in a month to do community service to improve our community, to build something, and then the government gives resources for them to do that. So for some people, it might be to build a train. For others, it might be to dig a drainage. The government will support that process. They also passed laws to empower women, for women today. I think they were the first to pass the women representation in parliament law in Africa. It started with 15%. I believe it's at 30% now. I'm saying all of this to say, Michael and Cyrus, that it's not sufficient to do these symbolic things. It's more important to do the programming. The symbol is extremely critical. So when somebody is walking PHP, they say, oh, people were killed here and they can read the story. That's extremely important. But in addition to that, we must do the programs. We must investigate. We must hold people accountable. We must at least establish the truth. And that has been lacking. Sierra Leone, right next to us, Ahmed Tijan Kavar wrote a letter to the United Nations. I believe it was in 2000, asking them to help set up the special tribunal in Sierra Leone. That's how it was set up. An elected president of Sierra Leone decided that this should happen, and that's why it happens. And then, of course, South Africa, etc., etc. Again, I'm saying all of this to say that in Liberia, that hasn't happened to answer your question directly. That should happen, and we should begin to hold people accountable. In Sierra Leone, for example, the TRC found that corruption, abuse of power, and those things were the key factors that led to the war. So part of the recommendations were, let's put into place mechanisms to fight corruption. So they established the Anti-Corruption Commission, they did this, etc. In Rwanda, they did something similar, they established Women's Commission, Development Commission, all of those things. Again, you have to put institutions and systems in place to address the root causes, to punish people, and then to create a system whereby those things cannot be repeated. And that hasn't happened in Liberia, and I think a focus needs to be placed on happening on doing that. And I hope the incoming administration talking about auditing people and prosecuting people will be a very good beginning. It would be a very good beginning if they do that in Liberia for us to really, create a solid foundation for our country moving forward.
Yeah, that's a lot. Alfonso, what you said, it's pretty much true. Just to add to that, Liberia, we have a very bad culture. All of these countries you were talking about that instituted different measures for reconciliation did it immediately after the conflicts in their country, once peace came. We are 12, 18 years removed from the Liberian conflict since the war ended, or at least since we had our first president elected after the war. It's been 18 years since Ellen took over. She did 12 years. Now Georgia has done 6. Uh, a lot of the perpetrators in the war are, good number of them are dead, old and dead, and some of them are key government officials, including Ellen Johnson Sirleaf herself, who was part of the support efforts for Charles Taylor. So if those very people are put back into office, it's difficult to have, they're not going to hold themselves accountable. We've already rewarded them with, positions in government. So how are they going to go back and say, hold myself accountable for, the role I play? I may not have taken the knife or the gun and shot someone, but I pay for the guns that, someone used to shoot somebody else, So all those things is going to be difficult for Liberia to really have peace and at least have reconciliation, from that perspective. It's been a long time. We've not held anyone accountable. And the main perpetrators are very powerful and influential individuals in our society. So it's going to be very difficult to really to get peace, to get reconciliation in Liberia. I don't know how possible it is as time goes on, but I feel like the chance for us as a nation to hold those people accountable is going away, it's slipping, And now we have the new president who's coming into office, backed by one of the major perpetrators in the last war. So is he going to support the establishment of a war crimes court? What measures, what is he going to support in terms of reconciliation? Is he just going to say, let's build another park and tell people sorry, which has been the traditional way things are handled in Liberia? If something happens, the older people, the elders will come together and say, people, you're sorry, or let it go. They break cola, whatever they do, and there's no accountability there. It's just sorry. And that person who committed whatever atrocity or whatever wrong, walks away to go and do it again and say sorry again. So we don't have a culture of accountability. And that's not just from, the free slaves coming in, it's also from the traditional perspective. I don't know what people did historically, but from what I've seen growing up in Liberia, that's what has happened. We haven't had accountability, even amongst the native people in the villages. Our people are always have these this way of doing things. Let's let it go. And it's been going on in Liberia forever. Even here in America, we brought that here. Liberian people here will commit certain crimes against other Liberians, young people here, and you will have people come and sit as family and say, people, let this thing go. So it's difficult for us to really move forward if this is how we approach things as a country. And when you add the fact that time is passing, it's 18 years since we elected a new president since the war, it makes it more difficult to really hold people accountable. The stories are going. Our elders who were alive during that time when the war, and can tell you who came into their villages and did what atrocities. Some of them are dead now. Some of them are dead now. Some of them are old. They can't remember things anymore. So it's even more difficult to tell those stories.
Very important point, Michael. Yes, those people acted immediately after their process, so that made it easier. Um, there are various mechanisms, there are various things that can be done. Again, I want to urge Liberians to go back and actually read the Liberia TRC recommendations. It's not entirely focused on prosecution for war crimes, even though that's one of the components. And I believe very strongly we should pursue that. But as Cyrus rightfully said, um, the Gachacho system in Rwanda is similar to the Palava Hut system, where people met publicly and solved community problems. In the past, community actually punished people. Um, but again, so there are a number of things that can be done. There's also the process of restorative restorative justice, as I said earlier. For example, part of the program to adapt in Rwanda was to get um, community people to participate in the rebuilding of the things that they facilitated the destruction of, that they participated in destroying, etc. Let's say, for example, I like to use lo-fi. So in lo-fi, Ulimoke, when they committed a lot of atrocities, um, destroyed, the people, Sandy and Coral bushes or whatever. Then some lo-fi defense force or MPFL fighters also went in and burned mosques, religious facilities that, Muslim members and Muslims use. How can we put a system in place that restores the society? Because what happens when war takes place, when conflict takes place, is that trust that your neighbor will protect you, that your neighbor will value and respect you, is broken. And then to go ahead and kill your people, to destroy your property, etc. Maybe at the community level, we can restore those things through our Palava Hut system. And in fact, I can say that that's one of the proposals that the TRC made. So these are some of the things that we can do that can still happen in our communities, even though it would have been better if they had happened earlier. But we can do those things to restore society. And to, one of the things in reconciliation is victims, people want to know the truth. What happened to my father? Who killed him? So Moses in the community comes up and said, "Look, my people, I'm sorry. I killed old man Yakwa when he was on his way going to the farmland tree. I'm sorry about that." The community then imposes something on Moses to help restore. That family walks away knowing what happened to their father. All of these are important elements of reconciliation, and then unification. And yes, and I want to suggest very strongly that in as much as I admire these unification symbols and monuments and stuff, they're not sufficient. We can still put programs into place to address the look at the Zogos walking around in the streets. The children, some of the lot of them parents were killed or whatever, and so they couldn't go to school. The education system stopped. In South Africa and in Rwanda, the recommendation in South Africa, in Rwanda, and to some extent South Africa, programs were recommended and put into place to provide education for the young people who fell in that category free of charge, to provide reparations for people who are victims of human rights abuses. Um, those things can still happen in Liberia. We still have those things. It's just that, as you said, Michael, successive regimes, successive administrations fail to implement those things. And we can, as a people, can and should insist that, the new administration and successive administrations implement those things. Because without that, we'll never have a solid foundation upon which to build our peace and our democracy.
So my question would be, why have we, why has this accountability, the recommendations of the TRC report evaded us so far? 20 years, almost 20 years down the road. I think it was first promulgated in 2006.
Mhm.
So we are at 2023 already.
Yeah.
Why? You make a good point that the punishment component of the recommendation is just one. There are areas that deal with the need to de-traumatize the community. There are areas that deals with the equitable distribution of the country's resources. There's a whole history of the cause of conflict in Liberia and how they should be avoided. Why has what's the principal reason why we have not even opened that book? Even though in the early stage of national convention was held called the Virginia Convention, where it was placed to the people, a majority of the people agreed that the recommendations should be implemented.
Yeah. I, I think Michael spoke to some of that, which is that if we look at some of the components of the process, there were some people who were implicated in the process, implicated in the recommendations and in the findings of the TRC, and so they were not interested in implementing some portions, of it, especially the
And they were in
what
and they were in authority.
and they were in authority. So they, yep, yes, and they were in authority. So now they had to make the decision. Take for example, Michael mentioned it. President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf was cited in the TRC for her support to the MPFL, and when she appeared before the TRC found that she was not entirely truthful. Mind you, it's a truth and reconciliation process. There are people who went to the place and say, I did this, I really did it, I'm sorry, you forgive me. And they were forgiven, they were given amnesty. So there's also an amnesty provision in it. But the TRC found that she wasn't truthful. For example, she told the TRC she gave $2,000 from the beginning, and that was it. The TRC found that she actually visited Mr. Taylor in Banga
In
in
Nimba,
the underlying
in
several times. After that,
I mean
in
Banga.
Nimba.
She visited Mr. Taylor in Bopley in the early
Okay,
state of the war and stayed over.
okay, yeah. After after that $10,000 was given, so she wasn't truthful, and she continued to support. So that's why they said, I think the sanctions they had against her were, I believe, was it 13 years or 30 years? I don't remember, of
30,
not
30,
participating,
30,
being active.
30 years.
30, okay, 30 years of not being active participant in politics, meaning not being a candidate or whatever. Well, she was
So, but
president. She was
that was taking
supposed
her
to
that
implement.
that was taking her out of play altogether, Alfonso.
Exactly. So she said, damn, I'm president. What are they telling me? I'm not implementing this provision. So that's why some of the things were not implemented. I should give them credit that they start to implement some of the things, such as, a human rights commission, setting a human rights commission, such as setting an anti-corruption commission. So, the she and her administration chose the soft things to do. So they did those things, and now they had ones, that would have brought whatever. And then, of
But
course,
even
we have things that we have.
even those things were not impactful. Think about it. That Human Rights
Yeah,
Commission, if you look at its mandate,
mhm,
it was not
yeah,
impactful. If
yeah.
you look at
So,
the Anti-Corruption
mhm,
Commission, it's embroiled in all kinds of. It never got as strong as the intent it was intended to
yeah,
be.
yeah. So part of the problem was they created these institutions and they didn't fund them, so they didn't have the capacity to do whatever. So again, the other point is the political will. The political will was lacking as well. So the Human Rights Commission should have implemented some of the recommendations of the TRC, but without the resources, they couldn't do that. The Anti-Corruption Commission was supposed to implement some of the recommendations of the TRC as it relates to, instituting programs against corruption, educating people, but also prosecuting economic crimes. Again, but when they passed that law, in fact, the act creating the Human Rights Commission, the both acts, and I was in Liberia when the Human Rights Commission act was created, but the act creating the Anti-Corruption Commission said the Anti-Corruption Commission could not prosecute anybody. If the Anti-Corruption Commission investigates and finds out that somebody was involved in corruption, it had to make a recommendation to the Justice Ministry for prosecution. And then the Justice Ministry will make the determination whether the person or people should be prosecuted. It's the same thing that was included, that same provision was included in the Act creating the Human Rights Commission. So these two commissions were hamstrung in terms of the mandates that they were given. Beyond that, a lot of times they were deprived of resources, so they couldn't even carry out the little mandate that they had. So again, that brings us to the political realm. So I agree with you. Some of these things were not very impactful. So they were symbolic. So it brings us back to the same point of going beyond symbols and really being serious about the process of reconciliation and unification. And if we do the right thing, if nobody is killing other people, if nobody is stealing, if resources are fairly and equitably distributed, there will be nothing that will be reconciling about. And there will really be nothing that will all be unified. Because The thing that brings these problems is these abuses. Let's cure these abuses, so that other people don't feel that the system is against them and disadvantaging them. Police shouldn't go and be killing people. Soldiers shouldn't do that. Every community should have clean drinking water in school. One community shouldn't benefit more than the others. You know, when you do that, you remove. I mean, we'll never have a perfect society, but when you do that, you basically address some of these things for which some of these conflicts, you prevent some of them, so we wouldn't have a great need to even be victims. So let's do this and do that. So yes, you're correct, but yeah, that was it. And those were some of to answer your question directly, that's some of the reasons why a lot of those recommendations have not been implemented. People felt implicated and therefore they felt they wouldn't implement it. They lacked the political will to do it. They had people supporting them. Take for instance, uh, the very Prince Johnson we talk about today, even though he's not the only war criminal in the country, but he supported Ellen Sirleaf. So Ellen Sirleaf herself was implicated. Prince Johnson was implicated. She wasn't going to do that. In fact, Ellen Sirleaf actually brought a lot of war criminals into her government, the leaders of the various warring factions. Then you go to Mr. Weir. Mr. Weir can say, man, yep, move from behind me, man. I'm doing that thing that you're going after the old man. Nobody. Prince Johnson helped to elect him. He also had other ones. And that could be a challenge with Mr. Barker's administration, as well as Marco mentioned earlier. So again, these are some of the reasons why these things were not implemented in the past. But it's not late. I think there are a number of things that can still be done. And so it should now fall on civil society to make all the noise we can make and to hold these people accountable and make sure that they do the things that they need to do.
Well, I want to hear some of the things that can be done, Alfonso. Obviously, it appears from everything we know that some of the ills that we still have today are because of the impunity. That people really do not believe that people can be held accountable for anything.
90%, 90 if not more percent of the ills we have are due to impunity. You're correct. You're correct. I would say for this new administration, for example, you say what are some of the things that can be done? Let's begin from prosecuting corruption, economic crimes. Let's begin there. Certain number of war crimes court might take some time. We need international support. We need, set up. We can also set up national courts, by the way. But um, just beginning with addressing corruption can send an important message and can be a very powerful place to begin. American people help us, for example. They've already sanctioned, I think, about 6 or 7 government officials for corruption. And they reached out to the Liberian government and said, if you want the evidence, we want you to investigate on your own. If you want the evidence we have, we'll get you some of the evidence. That's a very good place to begin. And some of those people, Miguel, Prince Johnson, you know, was sanctioned as well under the same Magnitsky Act. So all of these guys, it's a very good place that the anti-commission, a very good place that the Justice Ministry can begin, and then begin to prosecute and indict. Then we go back and go to the General Auditing Commission and look at the various audit reports lying down there that were presented to President Weah. Take the $25 million map of money. There was a report that was presented saying, "Hey, we don't even know where this money went." There were money changers that say they gave money when the auditors went to the money changer and said nobody came here. There were businesses that they said they gave money to that did not even exist, never registered before, never in the government registry. We can begin right there. That's an important place to begin. Those reports are existent. So in terms of things that we can do concretely, those are some of the concrete things that the new administration can begin to do, and civil society can begin to put pressure on them to make sure that they do those things. Incoming President Barker has said repeatedly he will be transparent, he will prosecute, he will investigate. Let's hold his feet to the fire. I heard a VOA interview he did recently, and he repeated that. Great. But it's not sufficient to make those comments, and sometimes politicians need to be pushed. So we all need to do that. Let's begin there while we work on the issue of war crimes. As I said, we need war crimes, for example, we need international support. They need to probably help us set up an international tribunal or whatever the process we want. But there are places that are low hanging fruits that we can begin to pick at. And that's in the realm of corruption and the rule of law.
Marco, the current president is asking the incoming group not to do audits. His argument is that it's going to undermine peace and stability. What will you say to that?
Well, it clearly states his guilt. It's not about peace and stability. He held some people accountable when he wanted to. He did that to Bernie Samakai from entering the Senate. Right. So what's the difference now? He couldn't ignore that just for peace and security purposes in Lofa County. You know. So I don't think him saying it just to say that
even though the devil king also, right?
Yeah. So I feel like him saying it, the Puerca administration have the right to see it as a threat to the Ag administration that you were threatening us with peace and security and instability if we audit your government. We're enforcing the law. Whatever it is that we're doing, we will follow legal processes. So if you're telling us that for the sake of peace and security, don't audit us, then you're saying that if we audit you, there will be conflict. So that alone they should take as a threat. And he's stating his guilt right there. I think they should audit, and they should be very, very transparent with it, and put the information out. And I think that will serve also as a deterrent to his people that whoever is going to come after us will audit. And the fact that the U.S. government is throwing in sanctions, I think all of that adds up very, very nicely to begin the fight against corruption in Liberia. And I think Boyka, if anything, if he doesn't do much economically to improve Liberia, his legacy could be, the beginning of the fight of corruption in Liberia. So that is something he should take seriously.
Very, very well, Michael. 100% agree. Yeah, 100% agree with you. I think about it a lot. What does Mr. Weir even mean when he said, "Don't audit us when you audit is wishful"? Like, does he even know what an audit is? That's one of the questions that comes to mind. An audit is not necessarily, and I think Michael hit the nail on the head. Maybe he's guilty of something. That's why he doesn't want them to audit. Because audit is not necessarily that you're guilty, except you're guilty of something. And audit is simply to establish, what happened, the whole processes. It's not just about stealing money. It's also about where we are, how the program implementation, and all of that. Others do look at program implementation. For example, we just look at the park that they built over there. An audit could probably be include who did the contract. Did they use the right fixtures, the right pipes and things, or even the pipes they use? What's the duration, lifespan? Audit includes those things because we want to know so that we can then make preparations for tomorrow. Workers should want to know what is inheriting. When Mr. We had the government took over, decided to inherit a broke government. The outgoing government said it wasn't true. An audit would have established the truth of the issue. He has hanging over his head the $16 billion stuff. He has hanging over his head the $25 million that he said they gave to money changers, and money changers said they didn't get the money. Is he not interested in establishing the truth to say who stole the people money? Or who corrupted these processes? His Solicitor General was sanctioned because the people said the Solicitor General were taking bribes from criminals and letting them go free. As the chief law enforcement officer of the country, the president, is he not interested in holding criminals accountable? Those are things that others were established. So I'm stunned by that very argument. Don't audit all because I wish not. No. First of all, you had a responsibility to exercise good stewardship of the country's resources. We want to know if you did. The country wants to know. The resources belong to the people. So I don't get it, and yeah, I don't know, but again, it falls on the incoming administration. One of the things Mr. Weah said, because we didn't order the previous government, so you might not order us. Are you kidding me? You
That's
failed.
it. That's
Yeah,
his fault. That's his fault. I think for Boyka and his
yeah,
team's own protection for for the future, they need to know what's handed to them by the Weah administration.
Correct.
All the ongoing projects that the Weah administration has going on, they need to know exactly where those projects are at. If there's any funding that was made available, where the money's at, how much was spent, and what's available, what's left. Because at some point in time in the Weah administration, don't forget, the United Nations wrote him and told his administration to stop using their money for his, government. They were made available for projects, not for government, use. So the current, the new administration needs to know all these ongoing projects that are going on by the government that have donor funds involved. Where the donor funds, what percentage of it has been used, was it applied correctly? Because they have to answer for that going forward. So for their own protection too, they need to audit. So if they don't audit, they will take responsibility for everything.
Yeah, this is one of the reasons why they need to audit. But before I say that, we've just gotten word today of the passing of Thomas Dona, who was the head of the Liberian Revenue Authority. The word has been out that he's been sick and taken out of the country, but little did we know that his situation was that terminal. So we'd like to convey our condolences to his family, and I pray for courage as they go through this difficult time. This is one of the things that we've been running through, and thanks to Francis for giving this to us during the election circle. But talking about audit, let me find out if you guys think that this thing should be audited, right? You remember the guy in Lofa County who said that they were collecting, they were waiting, they were waiting for the arms and the ammunition. Yeah, we need to find out if those guys actually got the arms and ammunition and whether they can account for it. So let's
exactly.
take a shot break. Let's get into this blue.
Higher you build your doesn't kill you, makes you stronger, a warrior, more than a survivor. You can thrive, transformed by adversity. You face every challenge, throw your way, stand strong, you can overcome. They try to beat us down, but we rise above the struggle. Never giving up under pressure, we don't struggle. Instead, we discover gold inside as we realize no matter what, you'll never dull our shine.
In my place inside this wonder world, my light will shine so brightly in what blind you. Something inside so strong. Know that though you're doing me wrong, you're gonna never cry. No, no. Something inside so strong. There's something inside me.
That's the spiritual, something inside so strong. How you feel about that song, Fanso? We've been playing it before.
Sorry.
Interestingly,
It's a powerful song.
this is a
But
50 plus
I also-
year old group. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead, guys.
yeah. This song has been around. This song has been around. It's a very powerful song. Are you hearing me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
You hear me? You hear me? Okay. No, I say it's a great song. I like it myself. Something inside so strong. I also know that you like
I
it.
like it. You know, it's a
But I do.
it's a revolutionary song. You know, for some of the things that that burden
Yeah.
us today. Yeah, and it's hopeful.
Mhm.
This group, they've been that choir for more than 50 years, but I think they closed up this year. They did their final concert in somewhere in March. I don't know how choir shut down, but
Yeah.
they terminated the band in March. The spirituals out of Michigan. I wanted to
Yeah.
now we are where we are. We have the Unification Park. We got a Unification Square there that attempts to remember the atrocities that were committed in that facility at that beach in 1980. But we've also spoken that there is a bigger problem of atrocities that have been created that we need to reconcile. How do we do that? We already have that park. Like I said, visiting the park this morning, everything there is bare except for the name uh, Unification Square. In that space, there are no placards. The marble standing there, 4 walls. There's nothing on it. So, how do you think we should approach it, especially from the civil society group, the human rights group, because that facility is there. Thanks to we are that we put it there. Be it not enough. What can we do with it? What do you guys recommend?
Well, I think, you know,
I think it's a good. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, I think, you know, Monrovia has always been the center of everything. Monrovia, you know, Monrovia. And everything is done in Monrovia. And not everybody lives in Monrovia. You know, we keep forgetting our people in the villages because they felt the cold hands of the war way before people in Monrovia felt it. They were dying in those villages. They were dying, you know, way before people in Monrovia felt the war. So I think, you know, when it comes to memorability or imagery, I think every county the government should work towards having a memorial in every county that speaks to the story of that county over the years. If we're going way back to the founding of Liberia, to, you know, to really go back and say, look, we understand from the beginning when, you know, the settlers came, they committed atrocities against the people, and whatever they did, you know, we're reconciling for that. We're having those conversations. We're identifying your history, you know. And then the war came, you know, and then what the rebels did during the war, what the AFL did during the war, you know, all of those things we need to reconcile for it. So let's put a monument in your county that answers, that tells the story of your people during the time, you know, throughout that time. and let the elders come in, let them tell the history of what has happened, what they've seen happen in their county, and let that monument represent that county. I think every county deserves that, in addition to some of what, Alfonso said, some of these people who committed the atrocities, they're still alive, you know, and we may not be able to put them in prison, because they probably have gotten too powerful. And for the sake of peace, we need to, have a certain level of reconciliation in terms of, you know, giving amnesty at certain, but they still have to, at a certain point in time, show, not just say I'm sorry, but show they're sorry, and that could be like, some of the stuff that Alfonso talked about. They need to do things in their communities or in the country that show their sorrow for what they did, and go back to those communities that they committed those atrocities in, and help rebuild those communities if it's their time, or whatever it is they're doing. But I think that those are the processes that need to be put in place that help the people themselves feel like, okay, this man came here, and during the time that he was passing here as a rebel or as a soldier, they burned down our houses, they rip our girls, they kill our parents, our kids, he's apologized and taking responsibility, and he's back here or she's back here, doing something to help, and as much as, look, we can't hold anybody accountable, we can't do, God can bring true justice and true judgment on people, but it's important for the people themselves to let go of what has happened, because some people are still holding on to those things. Some people are still holding on to those things, and they saw those atrocities being committed and they can't get it out of their heads. And I think only through having those dialogues and people coming and taking accountability, saying sorry and truly meaning it, was sometimes people, and Liberian people were not evil people. Yeah, evil things were done during the war, but I don't think deep down Liberian people are sitting there waiting to just kill somebody who killed somebody. I don't think people are sitting waiting for that. I think people just want to see something being done that make them feel like, oh yes, this man, everybody know that this man did this now. It's not just me who was sitting there in my village or in my house and this guy walking and killed my mom, my pa, but he's taking responsibility and people know, and I can finally feel vindicated, and I think that's important for Lutheran massacre, people in the church to get killed. The village in Habel, in Firestone, that I don't know if it was AFL or NPFL that went in and massacred the entire village. Yeah, Kato Camp massacre. We don't know who really did it. All those things. So yeah, it's important for
and there may be, Marco, there may be people who know it, who know the truth. Also, there are those who some of the public faces, like the butt naked general, who Yeke Kolba, who was also a rebel, who has said that they would very much like an accountability mechanism in war and economic crime court. So it's not as though people, everybody who's suspected is trying to shy away. And I think naturally there are some people who really want to get the burden off their shoulder.
Yeah.
How we get that done?
And
we really hope. Yeah, go ahead.
Yep. No.
No. I think
finish your thought.
I think Boyka, in his position now, he, I don't think he needs to wait, right? I think, he could play that role as father of the nation, if he begins the process, but he has to be very smart about it, not to ruffle feathers and take the, get too aggressive with it and take us back to, conflict. But I think if he finesse his way into it, we could get results. We could start the process of true reconciliation, But I think it's very important for him to start that process immediately when he becomes president. Even if it's with the economics war, with the economics, crimes code and prosecuting people, or at least doing audits and starting there, at the same time talking to some of these key figures that have a lot of authority, they're in government, and if he can start talking to them, to convincing them like, hey, look, you guys need to, I'm pretty sure it's burdening you yourself passing around and people looking at you. I know I've been to Liberia a few times. I've seen Prince Johnson passing around. Prince Johnson didn't do anything to me or my family personally that I know of, but I hear the stories of other people who have been affected by his activities. So I'm sitting there looking at him like, how's this guy passing around here, and like he's a celebrity when there are lots of people who have died, you know, from his activities, you know. So I'm pretty sure he himself thinks about it when he shows up places. Like, if anybody here, you know me, they know what I did to them, you know, back in the day. Like, he has to have that going on. You can't be a regular human being and not think about that stuff, you know. Difficult. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Even
Absolutely.
Prince Johnson, even Prince Johnson, if you follow his activities, I think he has a burden. I mean, he's building schools. He has a church. He passed. He's trying to find an atonement, and
Mm-hmm.
I think the best way to do it is to have a conversation with people who feel that he has done something to them, so that he has the opportunity to say, you know, I'm sorry, and let's go forward and let chip fall or where they may. Michael, you said it straight. Liberian people are not vindictive. Liberian people, I mean, look at our tradition, our norma, yeah, those kinds of people do something
Mm-hmm.
really bad to you. If they face up to you and say, "My brother, I'm really sorry," it's Liberian man. It's really difficult for him to do
Yeah.
something about it. And I think we should urge our leader, our new leader, because he has nothing to lose outside of the politics. Well, I
Yeah.
think it would be good for the women to begin to have that conversation. Bring people in the room who are the big stakeholders who are suspected of atrocities. There's a mixed feeling about the killing of Doe. There are plenty of people who are happy about it. There's some people who are not. It's not like it's a terminal issue because Doe himself was not a saint. So I think we need to discuss it because we have to get this yoke, this dark spot from over our head. I always ask the question, especially for innocent people who were killed during the war. And I would like to ask the two of you that question. We believe in a couple of things. We say we are a Christian nation, even though we have other faiths, but we are predominantly or we're formed on Christian principles. But also, all of us, all the other religions, even people who are animists, they believe in the afterlife. They believe their ancestors are in company with some form of deity. Now, so this is my question. People who were killed innocently, if they are sitting with the Creator every morning, how are they talking to God about us? Are they interceding on our behalf or are they asking for more pain and suffering?
Well, that is a Christian teaching that I think, from my perspective on Christianity, Jesus himself said the dead knows nothing. All right. So I think people who have died are dead until judgment day, and they'll rise up, you know, and then that's when things will happen. And you know, I don't think they're sitting there. I don't know.
So
You
we
know,
don't
I'm
need to
not.
worry about them right now. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
Pastor.
because the Bible says it, you know, that the dead knows nothing, and they will rise up on judgment day. I mean, people will come back. It's not like, you know, but that will happen on judgment day when Jesus comes to judge the world. So
So
I
when
don't think
so when
everybody.
so when is judgment day, Marco?
I don't know. Jesus said, he said don't
So
know.
judgment day one is one big day that everybody will be sitting on the line, or
Oh yeah,
everybody gets the judgment day when they die.
the Bible says everybody will see Jesus coming on that day, and we'll all be answering. So if you're a Christian and you subscribe to the Christian belief, you know, then that's what you should be expecting. If you're, you know, Muslim and you subscribe to the Muslim belief, then whatever Islam says about judgment, you know, and then Judaism, Buddhism, you know, all those other religions, you know, but that's what Christianity, that's what the Bible says. Yeah.
So
So
I don't want to
we're pulling our
get into
Hennessy to the
that.
ground, say to the old man, "Oh, yeah, wasting it."
I don't want to go into what the Mosaic said. I don't know. I don't know the I don't know I don't know the Bible a lot. Don't judge me, but I don't know.
Yeah. But I mean, what
But
Cyrus is
So
yes,
Michael,
asking
I
though
yes.
is,
got you. You say we shouldn't worry about the people.
well, because I feel like those
Yeah.
people have no impact
I,
on, you know, on what's going on now. You know, unfortunately, they had to pay a
I
price.
agree
No
with
God can
Michael.
answer as to why they die and we live.
Yeah,
Right? Only God knows that. You
I
know,
agree with
uh,
Michael. And
So
I think that people not even gonna wish us evil
Go
either.
ahead.
So I agree with Marco.
yeah.
I say I agree
Go
with
ahead,
Marco.
Fonso.
No, I'm agreeing with
So
Marco
the whole
that the people who died, I'm sure are not going and talking to God. Say, you see Marco, you see Alfonso, you see Sarah walking around, kid them, hard time, let them suffer and think. I don't think they would do that, because they're already
so
in a
if
good
those
place.
so if those people are not offended at all, if they are not offended, they are gone already. Why are we trying to resurrect the penalty for whatever have happened to them?
Well, it's
So the thing is, it didn't happen just to those people. It happened to
Mhm.
society, it happened to community, it happened to all of us. Even though it might not have been your relative who was killed, there's this shock that another human being who you was your neighbor actually had the ability and the willingness to go and kill somebody else. That's a shock in the system, because society is created for us as neighbors and as people, as citizens, with the belief that we'll protect each other, with the belief that we'll stand with each other and we'll follow the law. Now, when they did those killings, when they did committed those atrocities, um, there was a dislocation in society of those values and of those beliefs and of those legal systems. Those things were dislocated. So it impacted all of us. Now we're walking around terrified during the war. Even you're passing and beating somebody else or killing somebody, you're terrified. Could it be me? And those kinds of things. So again, that rule of law, that moral, ethical belief, that trust in one another was broken, and so it impacted all of us. That's the first reason why it's important for us to reorient society. The second thing is the people who were killed had relatives, they had children, they had community people who were dependent upon them. For example, imagine people walking on the road and they killed the father and the mother, and the young kids, are just bouncing around the place. Those kids today, some of them couldn't continue their education on account of those atrocities. So some of them are just poor walking around today. Again, that dislocation impacts them, and therefore they need some redress. That's why the state needs to put, community state needs to put programs in place to address. There were people who father or children just left and they don't even know what happened to them. Establishing the truth of what happened will go a long way in promoting reconciliation and just making those people feel at ease. There are some people who say, I'm talking to somebody, my brother, I don't know what my son 1990, we didn't see my brother yet. We didn't know whether he in Ghana or he in Uganda or he in Europe. We don't know. We lost contact with him. Those people, if Joseph in the community killed that man and Joseph comes up and say, you know what, your brother not coming back. When he went for water, I follow him, I fought him. Those people will have, a form of, you know, a closure. So that's important. That's the reason why all of that is important. And then, of course, all of the programs that we can put together as well. The TRC had, as I said earlier, had an amnesty mechanism. That's why people like Bodnik and other people who went and testified truthfully and asked for forgiveness were given amnesty. The problem is there were people who committed some of the greatest, were responsible for some of the greatest atrocities, but also refused to even accept that what they did was wrong. Prince Johnson, for example, every time you ask Prince Johnson, he talked about I was defending Nema people. I was defending Nema people. Okay, you're defending Nema people and for the war. Great. The international law accepts war. That's why we have the law of war. But the law of war also says don't even if it's a soldier from the other side. Once you grab that person, you don't carry on summary execution. You don't kill them. That's in your hand. You keep them and you turn them over later on, or you prosecute them later on. You don't just go ahead and kill them. That's what the law was says. Now let's go to the other civilians who you killed. We know you killed. We saw you kill. Were you so part of the problem is some of these guys refused to admit they're wrong, to say I'm sorry. And if they did, maybe the TRC would have given them amnesty because there were some people, as you said, Metan Blahi Bodneke, as an example, was given amnesty. He admitted the people he killed a lot of people according to him, and they gave him amnesty. Maybe some of the people who are gotten amnesty will not be. The TRC recommended only, I believe, only 150 people for prosecution. So it's not everybody. There were people who went and testified and they let them go. Only 150 people. And as Michael said earlier, some of the people have already died. So again, as you are saying, it's all not lost. There can still be a process whereby we can salvage, opportunity whereby we can salvage this process and make people, as you said very quickly, Cyrus, I know I'm long-winded today. Maybe in Prince Johnson here, he's trying to do reparations by building university, by opening church, by giving things to people to say, I repent. Maybe that's what he thinks he's doing. But structuring it will be better. Structuring it will send a message to the people that, whatever. And also changing his tone. Don't be boasting. People say you get to come say Robert, for example. Was that part of defending Nima? And there are other people that say it. So with Ellen lied, he's boasting, other people are doing stuff, that's not helping the process. They need to own up to the crimes that they commit. And finally, Michael, you're 100% correct. All of the symbol, everything will be in Naima River. How many people coming to there's several massacres. You talk about Carter Camp massacre. Who goes to Carter Camp to plant a tree or to even memorialize and say a prayer there? Nobody. Who's coming from Carter Camp to go behind the BDC barrier to go look at PAC and participate in PAC? They're not going to do that. There were people killed in Vanjama, in Feasible. What is their reconciliation? What is their memory? It has to be a holistic approach to these things. And I agree. And that has to happen. Oman Black, I hope he puts the right people around him who will help implement these things.
Yeah, I think human nature, from the very beginning of time for humans, we cause and effect as being important. For every action there's an equal opposite reaction according to Newton's third law. And the reason we need to hold these people accountable is because we want to prevent, if society doesn't take action, right? Individuals will take action, right? And then you move from having a stable society to an unstable society, and we have chaos. So society needs to take charge and let people know that you will be held accountable if you commit crime or if you go against the societal norms. Like right now what we have, the other day I was watching a video in I think it was 2 or 3 days ago, right? This guy stole something, and the people in the community caught him and they started beating him, right? And this lady came with her camera and started recording and said, no, you guys should not beat this man, call the police, because you guys are trying to kill him. And they were getting mad at her, telling her to leave. Oh, it's probably your brother or your family member, you knew that came to come steal, that's why you don't want us to beat him. And she's like, no, he's not my anybody, but you guys will kill this man, and you'll forget the reason why we have police. Call the police, let the police come and arrest him. You can't just beat this man because but it will prevent those kinds of situations where, oh, you kill my pa or you kill my mom, I'm going to get my own colors or my gun. I gotta get revenge. So I have to figure a way to get back at you. Then when I come and get back at you, then your children they're not seeing what you did to my parents. They only seeing what I did to you. Then they start plotting against me. And next thing you know, it's just back and forth thing, and society is just messed up. And it's everybody's doing it to everybody because everybody has a reason why they should be mad at somebody for something. So holding these people accountable, it prevents this from prevents society from going to chaos, right? And then secondly, because what the war in Liberia, it started with, Joe got up, Joe and his people went and killed those guys on the poles, right? Ellie and her people ran away, they were afraid for their lives. So now they go to America, they sit down there, they figure out ways to get Kumokwa. From what I heard in the TRC tapes, Ellie and her people and then went to Kumokwa to convince him to come to Liberia because of whatever Doe had done, and then Doe will continue to do in Nima County, And from what I understand, the TRC tapes, I think the last thing that drew the straw for Kwampa was they said Doe had put his mom in a helicopter and threw her down or something. I'm not sure how true that is, but of course, I would be pissed if that was to happen. So Kwampa came, right? Unfortunately for him, he wasn't successful. He got killed. Then Elena didn't stop there. They must get redress for whatever Doe and people had done to them. So they went to Charles Taylor and they came through Nimba. But before Charles Taylor even came, they did some crimes in Burkina Faso. So what if Burkina Faso people, Thomas Sankara family, decide they want to get revenge? Now they antagonizing Liberia. They say Liberians came here and threw our country in the chaos for Blaise Compaoré. So you see how this can just continue to get out of hand. So if the government can take charge and hold these people accountable, whatever way it comes down, the society agrees that okay, we agree to this, that hopefully prevent people from in the future wanting to do it again because they know that they will not get away with it, and that restores calm and confidence in the people that know in our head our government, is here to protect us, and I think that's very important. I think AFL has a major role to play in the reconciliation process. I don't know why AFL sits in the barracks. I don't know why. AFL should be equipped and they should be doing community programs. AFL should be focused on engineering activities in the villages, all over, in the villages, in the farms, rebuilding relationship with the people in the community so that they can see that the military is not just here to protect us, they're also here to help us. So if you have AFL engineers going to villages and building wells, taller houses, helping the farmers, like you got trained agriculturalists within AFL, they should use AFL for community development outside of Monrovia right now, at least to build some trust back in the military and the security forces, instead of just keeping them in the barracks and not giving them any equipment and no pay. And it's all those things. There's so much. But just to go back and answer your question, Cyrus, it's important for them to be held accountable, and that needs to come down to what the society agrees on, so that society feels like, our voices are heard, we are part of the system, we're not just pawns in here for the higher ups, and then they will start looking for heroes. And those heroes will be the very people who are committing. Yeah, Prince Johnson may not have killed his people in Nima, but he killed people in other counties. So he's a hero to the people in Nima, but he's not a hero to the people in other counties. And everybody will start looking for their heroes.
Okay, Michael. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are with us today, this is our last edition of the Election Central series for this election year. Next time you hear Election Central, that will be in 2029. So we're developing a new content for our weekly program, and by the end of the year, we'll come out with the new team. The hope is to continue to discuss things about Liberia, going forward, issue of development, healthcare, our society, and stuff like that. So if you have an idea, we've already received a couple of suggestions from Alfonso. If you got an idea on what name you think will fit, we'll be glad to listen to the input as we discuss how we want to go forward. In a short while, we will give our parting comments. We've been talking about unification. The general consensus is that while unification is a necessary thing for any country, considering all we've gone through in our history, the precursor to unification should be reconciliation. And the major element of reconciliation is truth and justice. What we have right now, we've listed a litany of atrocities that have been created over time, which are really very few of what have happened. Michael mentioned the Lutheran Church massacre, the Carter Camp massacre, and others that are not listed in there. There are a whole lot that have been done in our country, and there's not any instance where any of those atrocities were investigated, people are held accountable. As we move into the new year and the new government, our urging, all of us, is that we turn a new page, because it will be difficult for us to unify our people if we cannot reconcile our people. So I'll pass the mic back on to my co-host, so we can, each of you can give us your parting comments. Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Before I miss, tomorrow is Christmas Day.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. So thank you for reminding us. Merry Christmas to you, guys. We joined the program without saying Merry Christmas. And Merry Christmas to the viewers as well. Um, I told a story earlier about what that old man said in Calcutta, and the point I was trying to make is that Liberian crisis, the problem in Liberia did not start in 1980, and it did not start in 1990 with the Civil War. And it didn't start with George Weah, etc., etc. Liberia has a fundamental systemic problem that started from the founding of the Liberian nation state. And if we want to reconcile the country and build unity, we have to address those problems. The founding, and I'll begin from the founding of the country. The problem that happened from the founding of the country continues. There were abuses. You went, Cyrus, you listed a whole host of them in that presentation. That was great. Those things were not addressed. And because they were not addressed, they gave impetus to the coup of April 12, 1980. The coup happened because the people who were suppressed for a long period of time with no justice, and Malcolm made a point, when you do bad to people, not something, they take the law into their own hands. The military intervened in 1980 and did what it did, which was also wrong. You know, um, killing people, especially the 13 people on the pole, etc., as we know today. But that chapter, because the abuses that were occurring at the time, my father told me of his own upbringing. I also know of the rebel wars and the crew wars and all of those things, some of the things that you mentioned, Cyrus. Because of those abuses, when April 12, 1980 happened, people jumped in the streets and were dancing and singing. Country, I think, well, Congo woman born rogue, countryman born soldier, because they felt it was their liberation. Again, they took the law into their own hands. That's taken from Marcus' thing. Then, of course, we have April 12th. I mean, we have April 12th. Then, of course, we have the Civil War. The abuses of the coup and the coup leaders led us to the Civil War. A combination of forces. The ruling class before 1980, some of whom were killed on the pole and their relatives and stuff, were determined to come back and revenge. They saw a partner in well, Interstellar was part of that group. They saw a partner in the people of Nimba who were also being suppressed by something. So they chose Nimba. Choosing Nimba was strategic. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. So again, I'm stating all of these to say that we have to go as far back as we can go. If we're not holding people accountable, because of course you can't hold people accountable from 1847 or whatever, but you can correct the problems within the institutions that provide the services to people. Do that. That's a key Swahili proverb that says, "When everyone has a mace in the mouth, there will be no noise. Because everybody eating, nobody will make noise, nobody will talk. Maize corn is their staple food. So correct the inequalities in those institutions so people have the services and resources that they have. That's the way we can try to address the past that we cannot prosecute. And of course, go after people and prosecute. So, from the founding of the country, abuses prior to the coup, abuses of the coup and after, abuses of the Civil War, corruption and deprivation, these are things under development. Why is it that, it's just recently that Nimba has had a community college or a university. It's just recently that Grand Jita has a community college. It's just recently Lofa had a community college. So the young people who were graduating high school from those counties, a lot of them just remain high school graduates. The only university, public university in the country was in Monrovia. The other one was waiting in Happen because that's where the ruling classes came from. People were upset with these things. So they took action. They took the wrong action though. So the point I want to conclude with here is we have to, in addition to talking about prosecuting people and putting people in jail, we need to also put a lot of resources into correcting the structure so that everybody has a share of the national resources, and that will take us a long way. And Michael, you made a very important point. When the government fails to enforce the law, people take law into their own hands. When the government fails to provide people what they're entitled to, they go and get it themselves. And then society becomes chaotic. And that's what we need to address. Those would be my parting words.
Yeah, for me,
Thank you very much. Thank you, Francois. Michael?
Yeah, just echoing what I've said, previously. The importance of taking into consideration everyone's voice. All Liberians were affected by this crisis, and everyone needs to to feel like this reconciliation process or the new Liberia, that they are part of it. The average Liberian understands that I'm not going to say, oh, the president not going to hear my voice, to say, oh, every 5+ million of us, the president going to hear every one of us. No, he just want to know, or she just want to know, that where they represent, where they come from, is important to Liberian people. That they are part of the process. They were taken into consideration. Their story was heard. So, doing that is important. And I think if the Boyka administration goes back to talking in the form, reestablish the TRC, and not just focus on Monrovia now, but start going all over the country and gathering the stories of these people, and start talking to them about how can we, it's one thing for you to tell me your story about what happened to you, but how would you want us to answer or to hold these people accountable? Start getting some of that, and also start creating realistic expectations. Like, we hear what you want, but just understand that this is a whole process, and you will not get everything you want, but at least to a certain extent, your story will be heard, and whatever happened to you, if we can find the people involved, we will get them to come here and apologize, and making people feel heard. But that's the process. And from there, start taking into consideration, how can you, if we're going to build a national monument, build something everywhere, of course, everybody feel their story is heard. But if you want to do one big one in addition to that as a national monument, take into consideration doing it outside of Monrovia now. Everything is in Monrovia, doing it outside of Monrovia. Maybe go to Butuo, something where the Chancellor and people cross the border. These are symbolic areas that major events happen. You already said you built one at the PHP Park, or Reconciliation Park. All right, that was a major event that happened there. Start looking at some of these other places that major events happen, and start looking at how you can, build something there that the people, that is not just for us. We saw those things happen, but 30, 40 years from now, our children, our grandchildren, when they're passing, they will be able to recognize that this is, this thing represents what our country has been through, and people who were affected by it, their grandchildren, their descendants can look down and look at those and see that, this is where my great grandmother, my great grandfather, this commemorizes his death, the sacrifice he made to see Liberia, develop and improve. So there's a lot we have to do, and I think the Liberian people need to be involved in it, and I think Omen Boyka, in his experience as an elderly man, it's very, very important role, and I think he has the ability to do it. I think he has the skill set. His personality it's from what I've seen so far of him. I think he's the right person at the right time to do this for Liberia before it's too late, because I feel after this administration, the going forward, this will be 24 years since the end of the Civil War and then the election of Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. And more, and the further time passes, the lesser the chances are for us to be able to, make some impact. So I'm hoping that he takes this seriously, and can make something happen. And Merry Christmas, guys, to our viewers.
Thank you all. Yeah, Thanks very much, Francois, and our listening audience. As I said earlier, this represents the last of our Election Central series. We'll be coming in the first week in January with a new set of programming. We're trying to improve on it significantly. So thanks for joining us. We'll end up with the song by Cici Banai. We are building back up on the national spirit, the Lone Star, forever the national song.
When freedom raised her glowing form on Mount Sorato's verdant height, she sat within a doom of a night, midst lowering stars and thunderstorms, the star of liberty, unceasing from the waking morn, its banner shield of golden flame, she lifted it in a proud name, and raised her people long forlorn to know their destiny. The Lone Star forever, the Lone Star forever, oh long may it soar over land and over seas, deserted no never, hold it forever, oh shout for the Lone Star banner. Oh, that
Well, thanks for joining us. Thanks for your support over
It's
the
a
last
beautiful song.
couple of months that
All
we've been
right,
running the
guys.
program. And Alfonso, Michael, Jane Fodio, thank you guys for making this happen. Let's move into the new era and develop more great content as we get into the 2024. I wish you and your families Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Same to you.
Thank you, Cyrus. And Michael, Cyrus, Councilor Varda, who can be here today. And to all of our viewers, same to you all. Merry Christmas, happy, prosperous New Year.
Okay, guys.